Moving on to our third and final game of the evening, it's going to be Isurus Gaming versus Boreal Esports, the third game of a best of three series in the third round of the Join Dota League Season number 7 America Region Playoffs, and it should be a pretty darn good one. I'm going to see once again going to be joined by Daniely.
So we've come to the game 3 scenario. Both teams have played on servers that have been in favorable of them. So first game it was for Boreal, it was on the US East server, correct? Yes. And then for Isurus, they managed to get a South American server for game 2. So this time it's going to be US East again. So Boreal will be playing with the advantage. So with the ping advantage, obviously we're going to be looking at Boreal thinking that they should be able to take this game. Unless Isurus pulls out a random pocket strap, but they're going to ban their own TA.
If I'm completely honest, I'm going to say that Boreal playing on Brazil is a lot worse than Isurus playing on US East. If we take a look at the ping differences, Boreal have a player connecting from Europe, and Europe connection to Brazil is always super sketchy. And Isurus are fairly used to playing on US East, so I think that there is the chance for both of the teams to take this game. And even in that last game, it felt like Boreal still put up a pretty darn good show. Although, I think a lot of it comes down to their draft not meshing nearly as nicely when you are at a ping disadvantage. It would have been really good if they were able to take an advantage in the lanes, but it never transitioned as hard. As you already mentioned, Isurus Gaming going to ban out the Templar Assassin, interestingly enough. They had first pick if they wanted to go for it for the third game in a row, and Pepita has been performing on it, but maybe just decided they doesn't want to go for it, and now going to give Boreal a taste of their own medicine with the Night Stalker.
We've seen the Night Stalker in both games. Game 1, huge impact. The vision was awesome. Second game, he wasn't as strong as the first game, but I feel like it was just because they also had a disadvantage. So this time we're going to see Isurus handling the Night Stalker. I wonder what they're going to be doing with him. If it's just going to be the same thing that Boreal has, throwing him in the off lane, getting the Midas into an Aghanim Scepter for vision, as well as providing the silence. That crippling fear is huge for any sort of right clickers. And Boreal, they're going to go for a Shadow Fiend as their first pick. So already you're seeing a hero that will have some sort of a weakness to the Night Stalker. Very easy to kill him early on if they really wanted to. And they're going to follow it up with a Lich pick, surprisingly enough. We very rarely see this hero, but the bonus armor from the ice armor will be really useful for them.
Yeah, and also is going to pretty much keep one lane under control no matter what. The recent changes to Lich, you no longer share the experience with the enemy team, even if they are in range when you deny that creep, and it makes such a big difference. Also, being able to deny catapults makes it so it's very easy to keep your lane equilibrium close to your tower, although not quite, like just at the perfect sweet spot. One of the best heroes at controlling those waves. However, he is a little bit on the lower HP side, and Night Stalker with a little bit of help could very easily burst him down. I think the Lich pickup is pretty good for Boreal, and also is going to make it very difficult for Isurus to hit the buildings. Darkseer and Night Stalker aren't very good by themselves at dealing tower damage, and we saw in the first couple of drafts that was something that both of these teams struggled with to different extents. So that extra buff on the Frost Armor for the towers should be pretty useful, and maybe Boreal are going to pick up an Ogre to combine with the Lich. By themselves already a terrifying dual lane, but the amount of positive buffs they can give to their carries and to towers alike is going to make it very difficult for Isurus to come away with a lane advantage.
I really like the suggestion of having the Lich and the Ogre Magi together, just buffing towers. Like, screw your own heroes, just buff the towers. But it'll be very cute. Let's be honest. It'd be very, very, very cute for them to go for this tower-oriented build. Surprisingly enough, though, Legion Commander ban. We haven't seen this hero in any of the games so far, so for this Legion ban to come out, this has to be very situational.
A Lich Legion dual lane offlane could also be pretty legit and fairly scary to go up against, but I don't really feel like the Legion is scarier necessarily than a lot of the other heroes that are still available left in the pool, most notably like Wind Ranger and Tusk. Both of these would be very good choices for Boreal, and they are going to settle on the Tusk for themselves. Maybe partnered with the Lich, maybe not, but still that hero offers a lot of utility and can very easily punish Night Stalker as he goes to dive with the Ice Shards either as a defensive or offensive tool. In both ways, could function very nicely for Boreal Esports.
Yeah, I like Boreal's draft, honestly, at the moment. Even though they went for the Shadow Fiend first pickup, the Lich and the Tusk together, they're such great heroes. You can use them aggressively, you can use them defensively. The Tusk in particular, do we have to say anything about Tusk? We all know how Tusk is as a hero. You could just do so much with him. So we have to keep an eye on this Tusk. I feel like he's going to be playing a very big role in not just keeping his team alive, but also with the initiation, because the snowball, it could essentially turn a team fight in your favor by saving a teammate and then all of a sudden getting a kill on top of that. Isurus, they're going to grab a Winter Wyvern, so they will have some sustain with the Cold Embrace, plus a awesome ultimate to work with the Winter's Curse. Although I think this game, Winter's Curse is not going to be used for crowd control, but mostly just to keep that one hero in place so that your team can focus them down, because Boreal, they're not running a melee-heavy lineup like they did in Game 1. They're going for a little bit more range and having that Tusk in the front line for them. So Wyvern, she's not going to be as strong as she normally would be, but she's still a fine pick.
Yeah, and very good against the Tusk in particular. It's going to make it very difficult for Boreal to find those pickoffs with the Tusk, because burst damage from his 2 spells usually isn't enough, and then with a Cold Embrace stopping most of that Walrus Punch, could find a little bit of difficulty. Boreal Esports right now, I think the biggest issue with their draft is their lack of catch outside of the Tusk. Right now it's very centric on that hero having a good time, and maybe another hero to somewhat fix that would be nice for them. A defensive support like an Earthshaker could work, although it would leave them very reliant on the Shadow Fiend Gyrocopter for damage. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But now Isurus gonna pick up the Slark, a mix of a lot of the heroes we've seen throughout this series, and I think Isurus's aggressive potential between the Night Stalker and Slark is definitely not something to count out yet. Boreal, if they are able to get a lot of farm, this Gyrocopter and Shadow Fiend would probably have a fairly significant advantage, but getting to that point might prove to be difficult. The Darkseer Night Stalker dual lane is in and of itself very hard to manage, and Slark, once he gets that Shadow Blade, is going to be omnipresent on this map.
The synergy between the Slark, Night Stalker, and Darkseer is huge. The Darkseer is going to be able to throw Ion Shell onto both of these heroes, and both Slark and Night Stalker are heroes that want to get into your face. So I love the synergy already, just having those in-your-face heroes and having the Ion Shells also do damage ticks to Boreal. Because look at Boreal's heroes. They're running a Gyro and a Shadow Fiend. These heroes aren't actually that tanky. They're quite fragile for carries. So if Isurus wants to get on the ball and just try and go for the super heavy fighting strat and just go for tower dives, kills 24/7, prevent Gyro and Shadow Fiend from getting any sort of farm and keeping them on their toes, then I can definitely see Isurus taking this game. But let's make one thing clear: this is definitely not a Battle Fury Slark game compared to Game 1.
I'm not sure
Definitely
if Game 1 was a Battle Fury Slark game, if we're speaking in all honesty, but it worked out in game number 1. For it to work out in this game, it would be a situation where Isurus could build anything on this Slark, like literally anything. They'd have to be that far ahead. Well, we'll see. Boreal Esports, how do they round out this lineup? Their heroes are already so good individually. They're just going to pick up a Rubik here. Getting her hands on the Winter Wyverns kit as a steal could be very good, and Rubik is defensively reasonable at responding to those dives coming out from the Night Stalker. However, also errs on the squishy side. The HP pools coming out from Boreal do leave a lot to be desired. I'd be totally on board if Isurus pick up a Lina here for their mid lane to go against that Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, I would not be against a Lina pick here at all, since she is one of the few remaining mids left in the pool, considering that you look at all the bans, there's so many mid heroes taken out of the pool that you're left with very little. So, Isurus, what do they want to finalize their draft with? For the Rubik pickup, though, it's not a bad hero. It gives them some setup, and it's also going to help them with catch. You can have this Tusk going with the Snowball, then have the Rubik follow up with the Lift as well. So they do have a little bit of extra disable to work with, but again, he's not really going to be wanting to steal that much. Mostly Winter's Curse from the Wyvern, maybe the Cold Embrace, and I think one of the biggest spells to steal would be getting the Night Stalker's Crippling Fear. If he can get that spell during nighttime and possibly throw it on either the Night Stalker or the Slark, it could turn the tables on those heroes. They're right-clickers, and Slark in particular is very vulnerable to silence if he doesn't get the Dark Pact off before he gets silenced up.
Yeah, as a general rule, I think this Rubik is going to function nicely, as he does in most games. Like, there's hardly ever a bad game for Rubik, but it's also not the best. We'll have to see how it plays out. 30 seconds for Isurus Gaming to consider this next pick. There is always the chance that they throw the Slark mid. I have seen them do that a couple times for Pepita, and maybe it's going to be Pepita on the Slark anyway, and they'll put the Lina mid on somebody else, but they will end up settling on that hero. And Alkadanchin is going to be the Slark player. Let's go ahead and switch in the overlays and go and introduce our teams. On the dire side, Isurus, Alkadanchin will be handling that Slark. Currently disconnected, and no, the Gyrocopter also going to lose his connection, so that's a little bit awkward. 1199 going to be playing on the Darkseer again. We have potentially a different stand-in on this Winter Wyvern Pekko, but Pita is going to be playing on the Lina and Nadera on the Night Stalker.
So on Boreal, they managed to take game 1. Can they take game 3? They lost game 2. They can be playing on the Radiant side this time. So we've got PQ playing on our Lich. Pizza Dad going to be handling our Rubik this time. We have Kikoni playing on our Shadow Fiend. Bakamono in the backside on the Gyrocopter. And finally we're missing one hero, and I believe it's a Tusk, and he is. Up towards the north, we've got Jeppins going in the off lane. As Tusk. I said Tusk. I promise.
Very well. Right now we're just in that awkward spot where we're waiting for the game to continue going. We're going to have a couple of these players reconnect back in, and hopefully they'll be here before too long. Slark and Gyrocopter are going to join us again, and we should be underway in just a second. But across the board, I kind of like Isurus's draft just a little bit more. Not to say a Boreal or doing poorly by any means. Their heroes are independently very strong. I kind of feel like Isurus have a big window where their aggression is going to be something a Boreal are going to find it hard to react to.
Yeah, I think so as well, but it's going to be purely dependent on how both teams play as well. Who's going to be the one to step on the podium first and say, this is our turf, get off, or you could say our game, whatever. It's really up to you, but overall draft-wise though, who do you think has the advantage for the early game lanes?
For the lanes, mid lane should start out very good for Lina, then transition to the Shadow Fiend. It's a matchup we've seen time and time again, mostly in the previous patches. And across the board, it should be fairly even, but I think Isurus are the team that are going to be able to move aggressively first. So although the lanes might be slightly in favor of Boreal, especially with this Lich pick, Isurus will still have a very good fighting chance at taking down early skirmishes. Alkadanshi going to bump into this 5-man smoke coming out from Boreal. The only one that's going to get that smoke popped is the Gyro, so the jig is not completely up, but Isurus with only the Slark in this top lane are probably not going to get caught out, and it looks like this is only going to serve to secure themselves the rune and whatever wards they might choose to place down. The wards for the offlane are not going to be committed, it seems, and they're just going to sit on the pretty standard spot covering the ward or rune area, excuse me. Kikoni should be getting that bounty rune in just a second. Is over inside the Radiant Woods. The Iron Shield Night Stalker is going to pose aggressively but not find anybody to go on to.
Oh, that was so unfortunate. If they were able to jump on the Gyrocopter there and potentially get first blood, that would have been huge for Isurus. So they missed that opportunity by a tiny bit. I think if they had a different support there, then it would have been a bit of a different story. But we'll have to see how the lane goes. So good luck and have fun to both teams. This is the final game. So whoever wins moves up. You're going to have to refresh my memory here. So if whoever loses goes down, unfortunately.
It goes down to the lower bracket. Winning this game, although important for both of these teams, is a lot less important than not losing. Like, neither of them are going to be out no matter what, but still they feel a lot more comfortable if they stay up top. Up in the top lane, speaking of top, the Tusk and Winter Wyvern putting a lot of pressure on Algodanchin. They've put their supports very much so in the other lanes, helping out what usually is the solo lanes, mid and bottom.
Yeah, so they will be bringing the Winter Wyvern in to help out the Slark with the CS. Now, Tusk and Lich, honestly, these two together could be very aggressive. You're going to have the constant harassment thrown out by the Lich once he gets that level 2. Unless he wants to go for Ice Armor at level 2, which I highly doubt it. He obviously wanting to go for Frost Blast, his first little nuke here. Unfortunately for Wyvern, though, she's okay as a defensive support. But when it comes to turning fights around, she's quite weak in that department, and she doesn't have the best mana pool to work with either compared to a Lich, who's going to constantly steal mana from creeps anyway. So they have to be very careful. I think the Winter Wyvern's glad she's actually paired up with the Slark, though. He's not that easy to kill if he's able to get the pounce off correctly.
The biggest issue in this lane for the Isurus side is the fact that the Lich is going to constantly mean that they're at an experience advantage, and although they will be able to get aggressive, right now they're not, but give them a minute and you're going to find level 3 in a bit on both of these heroes, then you have access to all of your spells potentially, or just a bigger nuke for the Lich, and then Slark needs to be very careful. The constant denial of these creeps will mean that Slark is losing out on a lot of farm that he otherwise would be picking up, and they're going to jump on Algodanchin. If they can block this pounce, Algodanchin in a lot of trouble. The Lich is body blocking there. Can they get this kill? I don't think so. Find himself a window of daylight, but they're snowballing under the tower. The right click is there, and PQ draws first blood by killing off the enemy Slark. Invis Winter Wyvern can't do anything. She's only level 1. Arctic Burn is on cooldown. She had to use that to secure the rune, I expect.
Yeah, she will hit level 2 in the lane, though, so if they really wanted to jump onto PQ, they could essentially do it. No,
Lich and
never mind.
Gyrocopter in the bottom lane are going to be split apart from each other. Gyrocopter drops his Rocket Barrage, but this is an Ion Shield Night Stalker coming in with that Void. Bakemono's going to take some damage, but they don't quite have the chasing power to go on the Gyrocopter, who does have boots when they don't have any. And although they had Surge, committing it there probably wouldn't have gotten them the kill either way. This, however, is a taste of things to come once nighttime falls and once Night Stalker gets his boots, which he is going to purchase right about now. Things get a lot scarier for the Radiant side, but good news for Boreal is the fact that their Shadow Fiend's doing quite well against his Lina. Pepita is struggling a lot in CS against CSF, 20 souls already, and the damage disadvantage for Lina makes it almost impossible for Pepita to get CS unless he has Dragon Slave, but still without the bottle, has no way to sustain the mana usage, and Kokoni has this lane on lockdown, 14-8 compared to 6-6.
Yeah, so with this disadvantage to Pepita, though, it means that the Lena's not going to really be able to provide too much for the team until he does have the bottle and the extra levels, because take a look at the levels. We already have Kokoni at 5, whereas Pepita's a little bit behind, and even though this seems very minor now, this could essentially mean life or death in a potential gank that may be incoming for either side. So Pepita's going to have to sit tight.
Nadera gets a wraparound on Kokoni. They don't have any more mana on Pepita, so he's not able to drop the Light Strike array. And with a couple raises landing, Kokoni threatens the kill through raise, barely going to miss Nadera. I don't think that was lethal, even if it does connect, but would have dropped him very close. And if it didn't kill him outright, I didn't see his exact HP numbers at the time of that raise connecting. Or, in theory, would have connected. But now Kokoni's going to have his bottle back out, and he's also getting a haste rune secured for him. This haste could very easily set up the Shadow Fiend some kills. We've already seen how much damage those raises do. If he could line up 2 of them, that's pretty much a dead whatever it is.
Yeah, he could essentially, if he wanted to, just jumps onto Pepita right now. He's very vulnerable. He's pretty weak right now, but there is also a Night Stalker waiting in the mid lane as well. So we'll see what happens in the bottom lane. Looks like they're going to jump on the Darkseer instead. So Lift is going to be followed up by a Pizza Dad very soon until he can actually get into range. So there's the Lift. Surge is going to be wasted, and they should be able to burst him down. One more right click should be enough, and that's going to be an easy pickoff in the way of Boreal. So nice pickoff for Boreal. Isurus, they're trying to go for their own kills, but unfortunately every time they do, they just don't have enough. They don't have little things like boots, they don't have mana, they don't have enough damage.
Hey, Night Stalker, how you doing? Nadera's gonna bump into Kokoni. The Shadow Fiend is losing this man fight because it is nighttime, and that's gonna be a very important kill for Isurus. You don't really expect the Night Stalker to be there if you're the Shadow Fiend. Thought it would be a clear path to his mid lane, and unfortunately for him, it's not going to be so.
Yeah, nice bit of gold going in the way of Nadera as well. It's going to help him out with whatever items he wants to go for. Would you think it's going to have to be that Midas sort of game, or does he have to play a little bit more of a budget-heavy Night Stalker, considering they're running a Darkseer?
I think it's really up to Nadera. Personally, I think getting phase boots earned for the second nighttime would be really awesome for the NS to be able to bolster his individual killing power quite a lot. It's going to be Night Stalker just play it by ear and see how these next couple of minutes of the game go. After getting a solo kill on the enemy mid, you might be inclined to go for that Midas, and if he's able to keep up that momentum, definitely not recommend against it, but they're going to go for a dive on this Gyrocopter, surge forward, they look for the kill. Nadera is going to be able to smack him down and might be able to find Pizza Dad too, but lifted up, Nadera is going to be pulled back. The tower is only going to get one more shot. Nadera is winning this man fight in the corner. He's going to kill a Pizza Dad, but dies himself to the tower. No way to sustain through that, but still it's a situation where you call worth as the Night Stalker up in the top lane. The Sark is going to be jumped upon by Jep, and Snowball's been held for after the pounce. They'll be able to pursue onto Algodonchan. They have another nuke, and Algodonchan is going to die inside the trees as Tusk gives him one final blow.
Man, this Slark has had a really tough lane in the top lane. He's got 18 CS, but you compare it to the Gyro who's got 26, at least the Gyro is getting a little bit more than the Slark. And Slark being one of those carries where he's extremely fragile, and he needs items and levels at the exact same time. And in such an aggressive lane, he can defend himself to an extent, but the Wyvern's been rotating around all over the place. He hasn't really been able to help out the Slark. So it looks like they want to make sure that Pepita comes online first before they tend to the Slark. So I think for the moment, yeah, I think Algodonchan, he's going to have a rough time now. But once the Lina comes online, then he should be able to get some space once they start going for rotations with everyone except Algodonchan.
I mean, on paper, his farm numbers are okay, but they catch vision of him again. Algodonchan has another pounce, would be fine even if they go on him. A lot of that farm has been coming from the small camp, and also that constant deny from Lich is huge. Down towards bottom lane, they're going to punch down the Rubik, again caught out of position with Nadera on the other end. Night Stalker is super happy to be trading blows, but now up towards top, they're going to go onto poor Winter Wyvern. Arcreeper not going to save your life. Walrus Punch from the Tusk, and that's going to be the end of Winter Wyvern's life. They're going to go on to get onto the Gyrocopter across the map. So much action. Rocket Barrage damage in Adara is huge, but is it enough? With the Frost Blast at will, they bring down the Night Stalker. 6-4 is our kill score, and with that, I think things have slowed down, although the Tusk is going to disagree with me here. Looking for the Ice Shards onto 119. No, they catch him just on the edge. That was ridiculous. They'll probably not have enough damage close by, although the Lich is going to pursue. They have a Snowball. They have the Walrus Punch. Is that enough to slow him down in order to get this one? He has another Surge. The Frostblast's not going to stop him here. A Haste Rune is going to be picked up by Jeppins. Stunned by the Lina. He's not going to be able to pursue as easily, but another Ice Shard walls up. Somehow that didn't do damage to Pepita. He'll look for the TP out. That's going to succeed. There was not another Walrus Punch available to cancel that one through, and although they continued the chase, they won't find any kills for it. The kill score remains 6-4.
So everyone on the side of Boreal had to TP into the bottom lane, and all of a sudden that opens up the lane for the Slark in the top lane. So Algodonton's getting a little bit, and his team needs to keep doing this. They have to keep creating diversions to create space for the Slark. Like, Slark can try and fight now, but he's sitting on a measly 700 HP, and he's going to be jumped on by Jeppins. No, he's just going to go into the creep wave. But this Slark has had a rough time. And we're seeing the weakness of Slark as well. This hero really cannot farm in the jungle efficiently. Like, he can hit creeps and regen from the Shadow Dance, but then that's about it. Like, he's not going to be able to farm like an anti-mage in the jungle. He's really, really bad in that department. And he can try and gank for kills, but I
think you're underselling Slark. The Dark Pact and the Shadow Dance regen is usually enough to sustain yourself. Right now there's a ward vision, or a ward offering vision to the enemy team, so it's not going to be as good. It's definitely slower than some other carries, but it's far from the worst. Algodonton can come back into this game if he's left completely alone. And I think the bigger thing, other than the gold that he's getting, is the fact that he has this level 6 now. He's much harder to kill.
I don't know. I feel like he could still get caught out even with the Shadow Dance. You can't rely on it completely. He could still
Not 100%, but as long as Algodonton is behind his tower, he's playing safe, he should be fine. It really would require more than just the Lich and Tusk to kill Algodonton at this point. And he has the tier 1 tower. At least the threat of TP support is there. And the Lina could be the one to TP in. And she's been picking up a couple of stacks inside the woods. Power farming up. And Pepita is getting to a very scary spot for Lina when she has that maxed out Dragon Slave and a lot of nuking power. Could very easily punish a dive. That said, I think Boreal are still in a pretty safe situation in this game as they're just out farming the enemy.
Yeah. But for Boreal, though, are they just waiting for a mechanism on the Shadow Fiend and then they're going to start slowly taking those towers? Because they're pretty close on it. Well, they're not actually that close. They've got the headdress, they've got 500 gold onto him as well, and invisibility rune on the Shadow Fiend.
Down towards bottom lane, Nadira is diving a tier 2 onto Bakamono. The Rocket Barrage is going to delay things, and the Night Stalker thinks better of it. Although the aggressive posturing and just forcing the Gyrocopter back to base does have its benefits.
Yeah, that's the best thing that they could do. Just delay the Gyrocopter while trying to create space for the Slark, even though the Slark's not really getting that much. I'm surprised Algodonton's still sitting in this top lane, even though he knows the Tusk and the Lich is here. I would have expected him to possibly try and rotate into a different lane, but he's just going to sit tight.
I don't see a lane where Algodonton can convincingly find kills or find farm that's not already absorbed. As you kind of already mentioned earlier, they're prioritizing Pepita's space on this map instead of the Slark's, and now Slark might be bumping into an Invis Shadow Fiend. There are no points in presence of the Dark Lord. This could be a very easy Requiem kill if he wants to go for it, and he's going to try for it. Requiem unwound. Algodonton will die to the raise, and Slark is going to be a very, very dead fish. One of the benefits of not having presence of the Dark Lord is that you won't be known when you go for those Invis plays, and although he's going to have that now that he's level 10, will find himself a very easy kill on the Slark. Kikoni is getting huge.
Yeah, he's getting really big. Although, honestly, Isurus can still deal with him. Shadow Fiend's not going to be the end of the world for them, but they just need to somehow make sure that their entire team can come online. They've got their Lina and their Night Stalker as well as the Darkseer doing relatively well, but they still need to make sure that that Slark comes online. I know I'm putting a lot of emphasis onto him, but Slark is such a weak hero unless he gets some sort of farm. Like, I would just like him to finish up treads at least, to have some extra survivability, and then maybe he can try and dart in and out of those fights and just go for that hit and run sort of style I see some Slarks go for. They don't have to be in the middle of the fights, just try and go in for that pick off at least.
I think that's fair, and it's really up to the Night Stalker and the Lina in order to make that space. The second nighttime phase is where Isurus need to get that advantage, and they're going to try to do just that in bottom lane with an Ion Shell on Nadera. They're going to look for another dive on the back of Mono over in the side shop area. The Gyrocopter doesn't see it coming, and now with the Void, they'll probably just be able to dive him. The call down is there, but not going to save his life. There was 4 enemy heroes there, and he had no backup. In the meantime, however, the advantage that they're getting in return for that Gyrocopter kill is damage on the tier 1 tower in mid. Still worth it for Isurus to make that play, but they really want this tier 1 after the fact, which it looks like they'll be able to take.
Yeah, but losing a T1 mid, though, that's going to be a large portion of the map not available to you. And you want that map control, especially when you feel like you're not in the best position. So losing that, it's going to hurt them out a little bit. And we have a Shadow Blade already on Jepens. And he really wants Pekko, but the Wyvern's going to play safe and sit around the tower for the moment. Although they might find a Slark instead. No, don't kill Algadonton. No, they're just going for creeps instead. That's fine.
Yeah, looks like the Slark's going to make it out alive, but you already mentioned that's a stupidly fast Shadow Blade for any hero, let alone an offlaner. Jepens could, in theory, find kills on anybody, really, on the side of Isurus if he gets close enough to get that Shadow Blade Walrus punch. That burst damage is not something that anybody on their team can feel comfortable taking. Nightstalker might survive. Looks like he is considering going for the point booster or Midas, and if he goes for the point booster, that would make it very hard for him to be brought down. But they're smoked up. Tusk wants some blood on his punching glove, and it looks like Jepens might be able to get just that. Algadonton is just trying to get as much space as possible up in this top lane, forced to be under his tier 1 tower. The Slark will back off, but maybe not fast enough. He's still sticking around. If they find any sort of disable on this Slark before his Shadow Dance comes up, it could be unfortunate. But Algadonton looks like he's going to survive, although Jepens is in hot pursuit. It's going to break. Algadonton knows he spotted out the Walrus punch. Is it going to be there? Algadonton has not backed off yet, although we know he's been detected. Maybe he expects it to be a ward and not Jepens, but in the end, we'll be able to back off into his woods safely. It's down towards bottom lane. They're going for another dive under the Gyrocopter. Walls onto the deck. Doesn't connect onto anything. Rock Brush damage to 1199 is quite significant, but not quite lethal. He's going to try to run through the trees. Will successfully juke the Gyrocopter, but Nightstalker with the Void will finish off the deal. Another death for Gyro, and it feels like his team has left him high and dry for the last couple minutes of this game, but Walrus Punch and the Lich Ultimate, they didn't even need the Lich Ultimate, completely unnecessary as Jepens gets himself a killing spree.
I think they just wanted to secure the Night Stalker just in case it didn't connect. So at least they get the kill. I think that's what matters. The Lich is sitting there thinking, kill secured, not kill steal, kill secured.
It didn't even connect. He was dead before the Lich Ultimate met him.
Exactly, kill secured, bro. Oh my goodness. So for the moment, for both teams, so Boreal, they're going to keep on the aggressive with the rest of their team, trying to create space for the Gyro, who unfortunately has been resting in pieces for the majority of the game. And you could say a similar situation for the Slark. He hasn't died as many times, and he's slowly accumulating farm. So both carries are really, really struggling. What do both of these teams do? They just continue on with this 4 Protect 1 aggressive style? Or do they have to change up the game plan a little bit and transition into something else like push or split ganks, going for like three rotating into 1?
I think the biggest thing right now, for Boreal, they can keep on playing the same way. Even though the Gyrocopter has died a couple times in the last couple minutes of this game, he's still able to contribute inside these fights, but not so much. For the Slark, cooldown is so much better than Pounce and the Dark Pact that Slark is able to contribute. The biggest thing that Isurus need to do is they need to activate this Lina. Pepita is 1-0-0 at almost 60 minutes in the game as the fight up top is breaking out. They have the Requiem unwound onto Nadero, not taking that much damage. They need some sort of disable. I'm not going to happen now. Kikone's down to half. Pops the mechanism, but with the Void and the continued slows, Kikone's going to be dropped low. They have the Fade Bolt. They have the lift. Vacuum back onto Kikone, and Winter's Curse will kill off the Shadow Fiend, but the Death Requiem will kill off the Night Stalker simultaneously. 1-for-1 trade, but still good for Isurus. Might not be over yet. PQ's coming in. He has the Frost Blast, although no ultimate for 14 seconds. Won't be able to cancel his TP by himself. Can they get the snowball in time? No, the snowball is going to be going straight towards the base unsuccessfully. A little bit sad there for Boreal, but still, that's going to be about it. Slark is in fact going to go for a hand of Midas. And I think, although this is a late Midas, you already mentioned it, Slark needs items, and this is one of the few ways he can get them. Call down going to be dropped down bottom as the Gyrocopter tries to repel the Lina, looking for the TP out. Pepita can get in range for the Yules. Can he get the vision? He can't. And although the blind LSA is going to be there, doesn't catch out the Gyrocopter. So that's all she wrote. 97 is our kill score. Although they're trying, Pepita still hasn't really done that much in this game, outside of take some space inside the woods.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that he hasn't done that much. Maybe it's just that he doesn't play Lina that often. Sometimes you can see this with Lina players where if they don't play the hero that frequently, they don't really know when to go for rotations. No?
Yeah, Pepita plays as Lina. Yeah, he does.
honestly, it's just very quiet for Lena. Probably one of the most quiet ones I've seen so far.
A lot of this comes down to the recent patch changes to Lena, especially the Yule's nerf. Although the damage nerfs on her ultimate Light Strike Ray do hurt a little bit, I think the Yule's not having nearly as much range is making it difficult for her to find those openings. And Boreal did well in all of their lanes. Even though there's a lot of potential for the Lena to be aggressive, she can really only be aggressive with allies at nighttime. During the day, her ability to find kills is almost exclusively linked to these supports going out alone, and the Lich and the Rubik have been mostly tied up with the rest of their team. The Lena is going to cut the creep wave mid, but there's a Lich and a Rubik following her. Can they catch this off? The Lich ultimate's there to slow her down. It's going to use the Yules to just lodge that one, but with the Walrus Punch and the Frost Blast, Pepita is going to go down one way or another, although the stun connects. Laguna Blade will kill off the Lich. The stolen Dragon Slave from Rubik will secure the kill in trade. At least she gets something, but yeah, that's really not what you want your Lena to be doing at this point, going for a one-for-one support trade.
Yeah, it's still a huge kill for Boreal. It's a mid Lena that's off the map, and you can easily take a tower, and no one's going to contest you for it. Like, Isurus, they could try and contest for the tower right now, but Lena is one of their main damage dealers, and a lot of these heroes are super tanky now, and it looks like they want to try and go for a jump onto the Wyvern. Doesn't connect with the Ice Shards, unfortunately. He would have flown over it anyway, so Pekko, he's alright. But Isurus, though, they're really struggling, and Boreal, they have...
Ooh, the double nukes from the Rubik almost killing him off. If there was a couple more tower shots, maybe. But yeah, that's unfortunate for the Slark. Lucky enough for him, he does have the ultimate to regen back up and go farm, but the Rubik is a lot stronger than the Slark. Not something you see very often. Jeppins finds the Night Stalker. A little bit of help from the Gyrocopter. That's a very easy kill. This Tusk is getting so much space and so much farm. He's the second highest farmed hero on the team, and the third in the game as a whole. We usually don't get to see this much room given to the hero, but he could use it very well. Maxed out Ice Shards, maxed out Snowball, a lot of nuke there, and it looks like he's going to be building into a Silver Edge.
Yeah, this would be pretty good on... Oh, who's the Silver Edge really for the bonus?
Just
like,
the damage.
You'll get rid of Essence Shift, I guess, and will it get rid of Hunter in the Night?
It does get rid of the movement speed and, yes, the Hunter in the Night passive. I think the bigger issue here is the fact that it's going to be reducing Lena's damage and taking away her Fiery Soul. I think that's really the big benefit of having this Silver Edge, but now, spotted out. Sentry Ward on the ground. Light Strike Ray is there, but with the lift up from the Rubik, they might be able to turn things around on Pepita. He steals the Light Strike Ray. Snowball forward. Pepita can't dodge that one. She already used her Yules defensively. The Mechanism will try to save her life, but she can't quite get off that Laguna Blade, and now they're chasing forward for the Darkseer. He has a Surge. Will be able to get himself out to safety, but just like that, they've lost Lena again, and across the map, the Gyrocopter is going to die to the Slug Night Stalker and Winter Wyvern. I believe they do have to use a curse for that one. Completely worth it for Isurus, and across the board, a fairly even trade, although...
Oh, Algodonton. Yeah. Well, rest in pieces, Slug. Rest in pieces. Not really much to say about that. Nice pick off for the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, Shadow Fiend is really having quite a good time, even though he has died twice this game, is farming up an absolute storm. Top net worth on the board, and there's nobody close to contesting him. Has S&Y Mechanism done about 20 minutes into the game with 1,700 in the bank, is super, super farmed, and Boreal can group up around this Shadow Fiend, even though the Gyrocopter is having a subpar time. It still stands that the Gyrocopter is more ahead than the Slark, and this Helm of the Dominator is accelerating his farm a little bit more than the Midas.
Yeah, but it's also because Bakemono can actually contribute to the team fights, right? He just comes in, throws a couple of rocket barrages as well as a cooldown, whereas a Slark, he can pound someone, and then you're in the middle of 4 heroes, and then you're in trouble. So he doesn't really want to be in those fights as of yet. So Midas on the Slark, I'm not going to say it's a bad item. He needs the items. It's going to help him speed up his farm a little bit more, but it's not going to help out. It's not going to really help him out in any sort of team fight scenario. And we are going to have a roast attempt coming through for Boreal. And even though Isurus may know this is happening, or looks like they don't, I don't think they would have been able to contest it regardless. This is going down way too quickly.
Right now, Dire's vision around the pit is there, but the Radiant vision is so much more. They're going to try to collapse on this with the presence of the Dark Lord minus armor and the Ice armor to sustain them. They're going to be able to take down this Roche, but can they take the fight after the fact? Light Striker will be thrown out by the Rubik as Jeppins will drop the Shadow Blade and continue the chase. Call down is mostly whiffed. but it looks like Isurus are going to be forced to be repelled. The Night Stalker is going to go onto the back lines as the Tusk goes on the front lines. Yule's Scepter will delay that snowball, but Pepita will take the Walrus Punch. Back over in the Rubik Night Stalker fight, Nadera is going to be repelled, just can't quite do the damage here, as Crippling Fear is going to be stolen, but everybody will be able to walk home their merry way, which favors Boreal vastly. It's not only do they get the Roshan, but they're going to have this Lina die another time. She's just not finding the openings that she really needs for her team and not able to make the space that they really required with this pick. I think that nighttime phase for the Night Stalker at the 12-minute mark just wasn't impactful enough because of how shut down the Slark was. The top lane for Boreal did so exceptionally well, and instead of going for the Silver Edge, has a Halberd on this Tusk, and is going to be incredibly hard to deal with as they're pushing high ground. How do Isurus stop this? They have a Winter's Curse. Maybe with the perfect curse, they could pull this one off.
I don't know if they're going to be able to get the perfect curse off, though. Because honestly, you look at Boreal's positioning, and they're all spread out. They know there's a Winter's Curse. They're showing respect to the Wyvern. So Isurus are going to have to wait patiently for this opening to come through. Kokoni taking this tower really slowly, though they might lose him in the process, but he has an Aegis anyway, so Nadera is going to sit over the body for the moment, close the creep wave up, actually caught by the Ice Shards, punched in the air, and this should be the end of the Night Stalker. He goes down. Winter's Curse is going to actually connect them to 3, and they're going to kill onto the Gyrocopter, which is pretty big. They're going onto Kokoni. He's actually not dropping too low, but there's going to be a very, very slarky hero in the middle of the team fight. I actually was watching his animation just now. It's really funky, but 2 heroes dead for Boreal, whereas Isurus, they only lose 1.
A successful hold coming out from Isurus. Really nice vacuum back with the Winter's Curse on top of all of it. Boreal are peeled apart and in general just not able to appropriately react there, as everything was a little bit spread out, and at least from their side, and the heroes that weren't spread out were getting demolished by Isurus's front line. A well-executed fight, especially considering how it started with just an easy kill on the Night Stalker. Oh, fight's breaking out down the bottom lane. Slark is going to catch himself PQ, and finally Algonanchan is going to get involved in a pretty big way. Now the Shadowblade Midas running. The Slark is catching up into this game. He's the 3rd highest farmed hero on the map and can very easily come back if he can find a couple more pickoffs like that without falling down himself. Rubik gonna TP down towards bottom and will repel him for now, but Isurus, that successful hold is going to mean so much for him as this game progresses.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to turn the game into their favor, though, because all of a sudden the Slark is a relevant factor. He has a way to get up to his targets, he can burst them down appropriately now. Still a little bit less survivable than I would like, but I think he's in an okay position, much more stable than he used to be. Does this change the dynamic of the game for Isurus now? Do they have the Slark roaming by himself, getting those solo pickoffs, and the rest of the team just going around together? Or would they just have to continue on with how they've been playing so far? It feels like this is going to work out for them as long as they play carefully.
The Slark can only go for those solo pickoffs when he knows that they are solo and when they're away from towers. The times where that's going to happen are few and far between, but right now we're seeing Isurus look for a wraparound. The Shadow Fiend is hasted, running right into the Darkseer's area, and will show himself on the creep wave. They might be able to get this kill. Yule's Scepter will purge off that haste if he bumps into the Lina, and around the corner it looks like he will. Kokoni is very tanky, has the double ultimate orbs mechanism and S and Y. Do they have the appropriate damage? Light Strike Array will connect. Kokoni is going to be silenced up, Laguna Blade thrown, and with the mechanism pop will survive for a little while longer, but he is completely alone around 4 heroes and will go down. They bring down the Fat Shadow Fiend, a good pickoff for Isurus Gaming, but I don't see this pickoff in particular transitioning into major map objectives. Maybe the tier 2 tower top, but that's about all they can hope for, and even that is a bit of a stretch.
Honestly, I think it's just opening up the map here for Isurus. They don't get anything like objectives, but it opens up the map so they feel a little bit safer farming their jungle, pushing the lanes out a little bit, thinking that there's not going to be a Requiem coming their way, plus a mechanism. If a fight happens and the Shadow Fiend's not there, then there's no mech, and this might be an opening for Isurus if they really want to go for it, but I think they're going to play passive for the moment, farm up their next set of items. Are there any big items that they're waiting for Isurus? It doesn't really seem to be anything of a Glimmer Cape coming on the Winter Wyvern, which will help, but that's coming right now, so that's actually done. So Glimmer Cape's done for the Wyvern.
Lina, or Pepita's Soul Booster towards Bloodstone. I think this is probably going to be an Ags game for Isurus's Lina. The BKB from the Gyrocopter eventually will come out, but actually hold that thought. Neither the BKB or the Shadow Fiend are going to go for magic immunity. This game, Gyrocopter is going to prioritize a Lincoln Sphere. Interestingly enough, but I think it's a pretty good call.
Yeah, there's a lot of spells that you really want to avoid getting hit with, and you can mitigate a Laguna Blade, the Silence, the Dark Void. And I think that's about... Oh, I guess Winter's Curse as well, so he's not just going to be a curse target.
Mid
And
lane.
Jeppins, oh god. Well, I think that used to be a Darkseid in the Glimmer Cape. So the detection, no, they don't have it. So he's going to get out safely.
Yeah.
So
The burst
just
damage
kill
from
there.
the Tusk is going to start falling off. He's gone for the Halberd, which although I think is a great utility item in this game, is not going to be nearly as smashy as if he went for a Desolator, which is a similar cost item that might have been able to get that kill on the Darkseer, but probably still survives either way. The bigger thing right now is that Boreal have been slowed, and Isurus' Slark is now at the top of the farm for the team, is now working towards his Eye of Scotty. Alkadonchen is getting there, and at a lot faster rate than Boreal will be happy with. It looks like they're going to group up top and try to take out this tier 2 tower, but maybe wait for Kikoni's Eye of Scotty for himself first. He's only about 100 gold away.
Yeah. But once the IF Skadi is done, is this the time for them to go for the death push? Because I feel like their time is going to slowly fall off. Yes, they're only going up against a Slark and Night Stalker and Darkseid. I don't want to call this all. I don't want to say this is just only. These are pretty strong heroes, and especially when they synergize well, if you can get an LSA that connects onto heroes that have been vacuumed, that's huge. Yep,
Jeppins behind enemy lines, opens up with the Walrus Punch, Snowball onto Pepita, trying to burst down this Lina, but a Cold Embrace will save her life for a little while longer. Coney is going to get his ultimate canceled by the Winter's Curse. Death Requiem going to drop Nadera low and will go down, but they brought down the big Shadow Fiend. Pepita going to be glimmered away. Still no detection for their team. The Ice Shard's not going to catch out the Lina, and she'll be able to survive. Sentry's now down on the ground for the Radiant side. Pepita is going to throw a Dragon Slave, is over in the sidelines to catch out the poor Winter Wyvern as she was trying to fly out to safety. Still far from the worst situation for the Isurus team, as the Slark is putting pressure on the tier 2 tower mid, and he probably will be able to get it, at the very least drop it into deny range. Lena's going to Yule Scepter up the Gyrocopter. Pepita is going to take the Ice Shards, and now is in a bit of trouble. He does not have a way out of here. Caught inside the ramp, will be punched down by Jeppins. The tier 2 tower in mid is going to fall, denied out by the Rubik, but that last Lina kill is going to tip the scales towards Boreal's side. Still, oh no, it might not be over yet. Alkadonchen is going to find Bakamono to jump onto. The Pounce is going to leash. He has the call down onto the ground. Alkadonchen taking a good amount of damage, but has that ultimate to help mitigate that. Slark finds himself a killing spree. Snowball forward. Jeppins has no mana, can't activate his Shadow Blade for 4 seconds. He won't be able to use his stick. Was still on cooldown, and Isurus will find themselves a double kill for their Slark, and just like that is now a very potent force, and they're going to get even more if Pizza Dad isn't careful. Run, Rubik, run! And with the haste, he's running pretty darn fast, but Slark with that surge is going to be giving chase, although probably not fast enough. That haste rune looks like it's going to have enough duration. Alkadonchen won't dive any further. Instead, we'll just kill off that hill troll that is owned by the Gyrocopter. Isurus are getting there. Alkadonchen going to be lifted up, but the Rubik has no backup, so just casual lift. And Alkadonchen will be safely dropped back down to the floor.
I think Boreal now has to start respecting that there's a Slark on the map. Even though he wasn't there in the fight previously, he comes in from the backside and he just goes for the hit and run. He just kills people when they're trying to retreat. And this is the style of play that Isurus is... They're doing very well. They're hanging in and they're making the most of the resources that they currently have. And eventually this Slark is going to be ready to just fight with his team. And Boreal... They have some decent control, but I don't think they have enough to actually play against a Slark. Because, yeah, they have a Gyrocopter and a Shadow Fiend, but I think these two combined, I don't know if they can actually do it themselves. The Gyrocopter's gone for more survivability Gyrocopter compared to the Shadow Fiend, who has gone for the standard Shadow Fiend items. So...
And even the standard Shadow Fiend items don't do that much damage, and it's very stat heavy on both of them. They're going to need their next item pickups before they can really fight. Right now, some posturing for both of these teams. Kikoni is an absolute beast on the front lines. Now they have some backup, will feel very comfortable swaggering up that high ground. But everything's going to slow down. Looks like the next course of action is going to be to contest Roshan. Lina's around the corner, and he does have the Aghanim Scepter completed. Level 2 Laguna Blade with that pure damage could be very important at killing off some of these heroes that started, but we have a bit of an awkward pause. I'm not sure what that's all about.
Okay, so apparently it's a TeamSpeak problem. It should be fine. This Roche Pit fight, though, this is going to be pretty big, and depending on how many heroes come out of this, it may dictate the next push for either side. Creepway's very much in favor of Boreal though in the mid lane, so if Boreal manages to come out ahead in this Roche fight, then they can just go straight down the mid lane and take down those Raxes. They're exposed as well. T3 was taken down before in a previous fight, so this is looking good for Boreal if they can manage to take the Roshan or take a couple of heroes in this Roche fight, whereas Isurus, their push... It's going to take a while for them to go down mid lane. They could try and potentially push down bottom. It is more favorable down there for them, but they have to go through a T2. So unpause is going to happen. How's this Roche fight going to happen? Will this wraparound be successful by Pepita?
Yeah, I'm not so sure that we can answer those questions right about now. But one thing that Isurus do have in the Roshan fight is the Aghanim Scepter Night Stalker vision, which is absolutely terrifying for Boreal. He has Darkness too to pop, and once Darkness is down, the amount of control you have over the engagement is very slim to none. Your vision is reduced to minuscule amounts, and Lina's going to properly disconnect. What an awkward time. And, well, hopefully we'll be back here shortly. The team of Isurus, I believe, have enough in order to stop Boreal from taking out this Roshan, as long as they don't get picked off, and that relies on this Tusk finding initiation, I'd want to say, for them to get a pick before the engagement, and Tusk right now is a little too far behind the rest of his team.
Yeah, I think that Isurus, their main hero that they're going to have to be looking at is going to be the Wyvern as well as Darkseer. They have two ultimates that work beautifully in the Roche bit. And
Absolutely.
not just in the Roche pit either, it's just in any sort of AoE. If you can catch heroes with the Vacuum or a Winter's Curse and keep them in place, you can set up each other's spells. So the synergy between these heroes is huge. So I think Boreal's going to have to show a lot of respect in knowing that there's going to be that Wyvern on the high ground, plus a Darkseer with a Blink.
Yeah, one of the weaknesses of Boreal's draft is the fact that they don't have super great catch. The Rubik has gone for a Glimmer Cape, which is nice, I suppose, but it's not nearly as good as a Blink Telekinesis Initiation or Blink anything, really. It's a little bit slower style of play, and ideally Boreal would just be sitting on the high ground, taking out these structures with the tanky Gyrocopter and the tanky Shadow Fiend, but that's not how this game is played out yet. So Isurus have a fighting chance. Really awkward to have these two disconnects. Hopefully they're able to get back quickly and in a reasonable timing window. Right now, doesn't feel like there's any immediate action going on, but give it a minute, and we might very well see a fight.
Yeah. So since you have any downtime now anyway, item-wise, what do you think about the item progression for both teams? Are there any that you feel like is lacking? I'm honestly looking at Bakemono on the gyro. He's gone for all survivability, and he's going for an Ogre Club, which is this hinting a BKB as well?
Probably will be. I think it is a bit survival light, or survival heavy, excuse me, damage light on the Gyrocopter and the Shadow Fiend both. But it's normal, and they're relying on their Requiem and their call down, the auxiliary spells, to carry them over these next couple of fights. If they're able to do well in these engagements, they'll be able to fix that weakness very quickly and pick up like an MKB or a Daedalus on Gyrocopter and Shadow Fiend respectively, and then they'll be able to fix that a bit. I think the biggest issue for the Gyrocopter is the fact that he's just not getting as much farm as he'd like to be. Usually, when you take a look at Gyrocopter, you're going to be sitting on a lot more items than he is at this point. Only 147 last hits. He's died 6 times this game. That said, Isurus aren't doing that well either on the Slark relative to the perfect world scenario. So for this game, Gyrocopter's farm is acceptable, but as you kind of already alluded to, he does need that next item before he's really going to be super smashy. I think the thing for me would be to replace Shadow Fiend's Scotty maybe with a Butterfly or something with just a little bit more oomph after going for the S&Y mechanism.
Yeah, I really wish Bakemono maybe went for an S&Y himself. Unless, do you feel like this could be an S&Y with the Ogre Club? He's maybe going for the Sanj first to make sure he has extra HP.
If he were...
normally you normally go Yasha, right, though, if you want damage. So
I really wouldn't like the S&Y on Gyrocopter at this point. How I view S&Y, it's a really good all-around item, but it gets so much better the faster you're able to pull that online. The movement speed helps you with farming, the early stats allow you to take engagements at that timing window. But the S&Y right now would be very lukewarm. The extra HP it offers means less and less as Slark and Lina get stacked. Once you have the level 16 Laguna Blade on the Lina, it doesn't matter how many Sanjas you have in the inventory, it's still going to hurt a lot. And I really think BKB is the probable item and probably the better item for the Gyrocopter. It's much better for pushing high ground. Just pop that Magic Immunity, have the Lincoln Sphere on you, and there's not anything that Isurus can do to pop that Lincoln's that isn't a very important spell. Either the Laguna Blade or the Winter's Curse, and neither of which do they want to waste.
yeah, I think the only the only thing you really want to use to maybe pop it's maybe the Yules on the Lina, but then
Even
again,
then,
you still
her
want...
Yules is so precious for herself. I think they need like a void from the Night
Well,
Stalker.
actually, if I'm not mistaken, if you throw a Splinter Blast, does that pop Lincoln Sphere?
It
If you
does.
throw it at
It's
yeah,
actually quite good. That's
yeah,
one of the better things that they have to pop it, but the situation arises when he has the magic immunity up. The only spells are really big ultimates.
yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to see if this BKB makes a difference because I'm looking at it and I just feel like if they're going to rely purely on spells now, this damage is going to fall off so hard. Magic spell damage during the early game is great because you have a lot of heroes that don't have immunity, that have low HP pools, but as the game goes later and later, you're dealing with a 2k HP slug, a 1.3k HP Lina, you got a Wyvern with for heals, you have a Night Stalker that's pretty tanky as well, so I don't know if there's enough damage to go around anymore. I guess the Lich makes up for it with the Chain Frost, but it also depends on the bounces as well. RNG is going to be a factor to take in for Boreal with that Lich.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to see a Lich Ultimate do that much inside these engagements. I don't think we have had one yet, but there is always that possibility. Sometimes it's an amazing spell, other times it's a fairly mediocre nuke slow. Who knows? I'd love to find out, but right now Isurus still don't have Pepita.
Yeah. Pepita's pretty important as well. He's one of their main DPS, and they need him too. Because even though Algodonshan can do quite a bit of damage himself, they need the Lina there for some sort of burst to kill off a hero quickly, so then they can move on to their next target as soon as possible. But anyways, we still gotta wait. We can't rush them. We can tell them to hurry up. They won't hear us. It won't speed anything up.
But we might as well do it. I mean, it doesn't change anything. Hurry up, Isurus! Fix your
Please,
computer. Or
please.
maybe we just yell at their computer a little bit more.
Oh, that might work. Computers communicate to each other, so I would
They
like my
generally do respond to a good yelling and punch just right on the top
yeah.
of the hood.
Maybe you need to give him a couple of kicks as well, just in case. Although if you kick it, it may stop working. Who knows?
Well, I think we've run out of things to talk about for now. This has been quite a long pause. The pause rules for Join Dota League are always fairly, I don't know, wish-washy. It's
Lenient.
very much up to admin discretion. And right now, we have yet to hear anything from the admin. And it looks like the gyrocopter is going to ask.
Yeah. So we'll see what's happening. Anyways, let's move on to non-Dota topics. I have no idea what to talk about though. I'm really hungry. Do we talk
Oh,
about
fair
food?
enough.
No, don't talk about
That
food.
sounds like a
That's
bad
the thing.
idea if you're
That's
hungry.
that's a bad idea. We're not going to talk about food. So we're going to talk about. There's no opposite to food, but I was going to say opposite to food. So something that I cannot consume, but is a good topic.
Unfortunately, this game, the cosmetics for all of these heroes are eh. I haven't found any that I really like. I mean, the Night Stalker set is good, but it's the only one, so it's not all that interesting.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on Frankfurt major qualified teams? Is there any surprises?
Well, if I'm completely honest, Team Unknown taking out Digital Chaos was a surprise when we
Yep.
saw their series today. Which Digital Chaos were able to win because of maybe a little bit of wish-washy play coming out from Unknown. But right now we're looking to stay in this game. We're waiting for the admin's call. And right now, Boreal, it seems like they're on a timer, and I think they've waited long enough, but who knows? We'll have to see what the official word is going to be. I think the Frankfurt teams that were qualified and were invited are all very deserving. It should be a very, very interesting tournament. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So it's gonna be Frankfurt. So they said that the majors was gonna be in different regions, right?
Mm,
Or was it
I
gonna
mean,
be in roughly the same place? Because I was
I
hoping that they would hold it in different regions, so then it'll be more accessible to different countries. I was hoping they could hold one in Asia, but then again, Asia's quite sketchy, and we've had some shitty Asian tournaments, so it could be a no go unless it's in China.
I'd assume that the winter major is going to be DAC, like the Dota 2 Asian
DAC.
Championships. Yeah,
Well, that's true. Yeah, I can see that happening.
but who knows? I really don't.
I'd like to go to DAC, but it's in China.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always travel issues, visa issues, and money issues also that run into issues like that. Well, it feels like we're running out of time for Isurus. As far as what the official word is, we have 2 minutes left on the pause time for the Isurus team, and at which point the gyrocopter or whoever else on Boreal is free to unpause and we'll be resuming this game. So hopefully Pepita is going to be able to get back in here quickly because time is ticking out. That would be a terrible way to lose this game.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of I've seen a couple of tournaments happen. I casted them actually. I forgot what tournament it was. I think it was a joint Dota League as well. It was a European game, and one of the players disconnected. I think we had to do a couple of remakes in the process. In the end, they had to play without one of their players because the stand-in got DDoS'd as well. It was a Medusa, so they had to play 4v5, and I think they still won, even with the Medusa disconnected.
Right now in this game, I don't really see that.
Different.
Yeah. Right now, the Lina, although her net worth isn't the highest on the team, her impact inside these fights is huge. We're going to have the unpause, and we're going to resume this game. A pause from the admin again. Looks like we're not officially on that timing window yet. So as soon as the admin pulls the trigger, we'll be ready to go.
Oh man. So
What a mess.
are we waiting for 3 minutes? Because it's 12:43 here. What? So we can go now?
It's officially 43 according to the admin's clock, so that's what we're waiting for.
Okay, admin's clock. Okay, that is fine. So let's go on pause. This is a pretty grim situation now for Isurus going into this as 4v5. And unfortunately, microing a extra hero, in particular Alina, is not easy.
I mean, Lina, the issue of this game is that she's really important if she gets jumped, and using her cooldowns is maybe a little bit more important than the other heroes, so somebody's going to suffer. It's always more difficult to control too, but in mid lane, HeflaTV putting damage onto the tier 3 tower. Is this Slark just going to be allowed to keep on punching away at it? They're TPing back the Rubik. We've seen Pizza Dad repel HeflaTV time and time again this game, and it looks like this time is going to be no exception. Lifted up into the tower, didn't get the Dark Pact off. Warriors punched up. The Tusk is going to be able to put a good amount of damage, but not quite enough to get the kill, and HeflaTV will be able to slip back into the shadows and regen up almost to full. The wonders of having that level 3 shadow dance up on the Slark.
And it also prevented the push happening from down bottom. So Boreal, they're going to have to be very, very careful with how they want to do this. Do they just go push one lane entirely and potentially lose their own T3 and even Raxes in the process? Or do they just try and shut down HeflaTV, get lanes control, and then try and go for the push? It's really up to them and how they want to go about this. And if they really want this 2-minute pause,
they can't have it. Like, right now, they're out of their pause time.
Yeah, that's quite bad-mannered.
Yeah, the only ones who can unpause are Isurus' side, and they are going to have to. Right now, they're going to unpause, and now into the Roshan, they're going to go with the remainder of a double damage on the Shadow Fiend, although that's going to wear out shortly. I'm not sure Isurus can contest this, although they are going to have very good vision around this area as soon as the Night Stalker moves up. Taking this fight is going to be hard. Darkseer and Winter Wyvern coming around from the south. They're going to fly over the top looking for the Winter's Curse steal. They get the vacuum back onto the high ground. Kikone's going to be Winter's Cursed, but the follow-up damage is very limited. The Lina is over on the sideline. Snowball down to the low ground. They're off of the cliff. They take the Roshan. It's going to be killed by Dire. Aegis snatched by Kikone. The Slark is going to get up to the high ground. At least they got the Aegis gold and everything, and now Pepita is back into this game. The Lina is fighting. Drops the Light Strike Array onto Pizza Dad. The nukes are there, but now the Lich Chain Frost going to bounce only once to Pepita, however, and now they have the Snowball forward. Warriors punch on Nadera. The Night Stalker will hit the deck and a gem with it. That's going to be a couple of kills. Can they secure the Slark's retreat? It looks like the Slark is going to be able to make his way out of here, although there's sentry vision on the ground. HeflaTV will be home free. This is timing window for Boreal to go. Although they lost the Roshan last hit, that means less and less as the game goes by. The more important part is having the Aegis, and they have the double life on Kikone.
Yeah, so we're going to have HeflaTV in the bottom lane trying to go for a push, but the rest of the team is going to go in the mid lane. So Boreal, they have the objective in sight, and we do have the Lina reconnected back into the game. So Isurus, can they defend, or are they going to lose this, unfortunately? Vacuum? No wall, unfortunately. It was already used. LSA actually connecting on the two, but nothing else really to follow, unfortunately. All the big ults are on cooldown, so Boreal's free to do anything to these Raxes. They're going to leave the range max, but takes permanent damage anyway. But Algadonshin, man, this guy is very persistent with the towers. But leap out Shadow Blade, and unfortunately, he gets nothing himself.
The amount of physical reduction coming out on the Shadow Fiend is ridiculous. He had the double ice armor, one from the Ogre Creep and one from the Lich. We're going to see Radiant's Courier get sniped by the Slark. I'd rather not see it. I missed it on camera, but still, that's really nice for the Dire team. What was that carrying? Nothing. Presumably, that's going to be an item for the Gyrocopter, I want to say. Maybe he decides they need the Demon Edge after all instead of going for the BKB. Things are going to slow down a little bit because of that Courier snipe, but Boreal are still the ones in the commanding lead, as they're the ones to take out high ground first. Now that their Ogre is down, their armor isn't going to be as ridiculous, but still, the Shadow Fiend's up at 31. The amount of damage the Slark's putting out is ridiculously small, 66% resistance to physical DPS.
Yeah, but I guess the advantage of running a Slark is the more he hits the target, the more stats he steals, and he'll be getting a little bit more powerful with each right click. I think it's just for him, he needs to survive. Even though he's not doing that much damage now, if he just keeps hitting his targets, then he can steal the strength, then he should be okay. But the thing is, can he actually survive a team fight? Because
and also that attack speed slow from the Lich's armor is going to mean that he's stealing significantly less as the fight goes on. Then you have the attack speed still coming out from the Scotty. It's not a very conducive environment for Slark to take fights in a 5v5. He really wants to find somebody to stick on the backlines, maybe like one of these supports.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, all the supports are so well covered by the cores that it's really hard for Algadonshin to just go onto the backside and go for a snipe. It's just almost impossible for him to do it without putting himself into significant danger.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, he's going to keep on the split push pressure, and he's doing this well. But right now, I bet you he wishes he was some other hero to be able to pressure those towers significantly. If this was a Lycan instead of a Slark, you'd probably see Elena Barracks in trade. But Slark's tower damage is piddly, to say the least. Boreal will continue their Death Ball push. They have the Aegis still on the Shadow Fiend. They're going to have that for a little while longer. More than enough for them to take out the second barracks if Isurus don't pull together a really big teamfight initiation, which they might be able to, but it gets so much easier with the Blink Dagger on this Wyvern, and he's so very close to it. Probably sell your TP to have it for this next fight, or at least as soon as possible.
Yes, here we go. High ground defense for Isurus, whereas Boreal, they're going to slowly chew through this, but there was a vacuum onto the Slark, and actually Slark came back for this. He's actually going to be kept in place. Vacuum into a wall onto 4, but they're not going to die as of yet. Kokoni being focused down by the Slark. He had a BKB, he had to pop, but Winter's Curse and them should be able to get Kokoni here, unless he's still alive for a little bit longer. He has the Aegis though, so he goes down anyway. He will come back in the meantime. 1 for 1 so far, but in the end, it's just going to be a 1 for 0 because it was an Aegis used. And the Slark came back for this as well. He bought a BKB just so he could fight, and he got nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing.
This second fight's going to be so very difficult, but Kokoni's going to be stunned by the Light Strike. Trying to go for the Requiem, is going to unwind it. Reduces a lot of the damage, kills off the Darkseer. A little bit fell from the Gyro, but with that Laguna Blade, the 850 pure damage nuke will be enough to kill off the SF. Buyback from the Darkseer, they really want to hold now. The double walls still remaining down on the ground. The one on the left is the Radiance from the Rubik. And now Boreal might be looking for round number 2. The Shadow Fiend is the only one that's not here. They're fighting into an Isurus team without their wall, without their Laguna Blade, without their Winter's Curse, and more importantly, without their Slark, with no buyback. They're going to get Ice Shards. They catch Vision on the Darkseer, now commit a little bit more vacuum for the Rubik, but a 4-step away onto the Darkseer will keep him alive as Darkseer disconnects. We need to unpause. Good to go from Boreal, and they'll have to go into this game again. The admin's going to unpause us as we have a telekinesis on the Siege Creep. Siege Creep is from the Dire's team, respectively, was telekinesis up by the Rubik and not stolen, as it's looking to kill off this Ogre Frostmage. Go, Cardi, go! Gets a CS for the team and takes away that super obnoxious stacking Frost armor.
And then, unfortunately, he's going to have to go back to where the rest of the creeps go, into the pile. Creep pile for the next game coming up afterwards. Not this series, we are in the last series, but in a random Dota match, I guess. You know, so in the Dota world, creeps die. So what happened to the creep souls? They just get recycled into the next Dota game?
I don't think so. I'd expect they're created anew every wave. I don't know exactly how I should interpret Dota's lore on creeps. I never really thought of that.
I assume they had families and they're actually fighting for something. Because you don't just fight people for nothing.
They look like clones of each other, though.
Well, I guess. Maybe they have character flaws that we don't even know about. Who knows? Who knows the Dota creeps? I sincerely believe they have feelings, according to law.
Very well. Well, live on, you valiant creeps, pushing relentlessly through these lanes. Right now, it's both of these teams' job to kill you and keep the equilibrium back in their favor. Right now, things have equalized after that high ground defense coming out from Isurus, but it was a very costly one. The 10-second BKB charge from the Slark really felt like it did hardly anything at all, and they had to use a buyback on the Darks here. That also didn't transition into much of anything except for that kill on the Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend has himself a BKB, and there's a Heart of Tarask recipe for Jeppins. This Tusk is going to be so very hard to dislodge. Personally, I think Heart might be a little bit defensive overkill, but sure, why not? It's going to offer an extra 40 strength to bolster his Walrus Punch, too.
Yeah, I've honestly got no issues with this because I don't think Isurus has enough damage to deal with Jeppins, plus the Shadow Fiend with the Skadi, plus a Gyrocopter who is reasonably tanky as well, and also it gives Jeppins extra damage too, so it's a little defensive, but it still benefits him as a hero, right? It's just, he's going to be that diversion that Isurus has to deal with eventually, because he's still doing decent damage.
Yeah, Heart's never going to be an item that you're sad about having it in your inventory, but maybe something like a Scythe could have helped the team a little bit more, or an Assault Cuirass could help in breaking the base. Who knows? Right now, that's what he has, and that's what he's going to try to use to take this next fight. He's going to be inside the enemy base, or at least he thinks about it. There is no dire sentry on the ground. He knows that because there's a ward there. In the meantime, down towards bottom, the tier 3 tower is going to fall, and now Alcadoncha and Pepita are going to TP back. They need to defend their barracks, and they're going to try to do so now. Melee barracks are going to be focused. Alcadoncha's on the front lines. Who's he going to focus down? He's looking for Bakamoto, but he pops the BKB. Laguna Blade's there. The Gyrocopter's still surviving Winter's Curse, but he's going into the snowball. The defensive snowball play coming out from Jeppins will be enough to save the Gyrocopter's life for a little while longer. They have to buy back on Pepita. Bakamoto is going to continuously be attacked by Alcadoncha. The Slark might be able to do enough damage with one Dragon Slave from the Lina. That's going to push him over the edge, but still the buyback from the Lina isn't immediately worth it. Can they peel them off of this barracks? Boreal still have 4 heroes standing, and these 4 heroes could very easily take the secondary major structure away from the enemy team, but now Night Stalker's going to pop his Darkness. Pounce is going to connect onto the back lines, onto Jeppins. Alcadoncha focuses down the Shadow Fiend. He'll get that kill, but Walrus Punch into the air. Jeppins will get the kill in return. Snowball forward. Can they save the Rubik's Life? They're going to Pepita onto the high ground. She's surrounded around that corner. Pepita can move nowhere. Yule Scepter is going to delay the inevitable, but it looks like she's going to go down just the same. Sun will connect. The Tusk has gone down. Maybe I spoke too soon. The Lina survives within inches of her life. Will make it back to base as she limps home on 30 HP near enough. TP away by the Rubik, and as the dust settles, the melee and range barracks both still stand.
And in the meantime, when that whole that whole war, God, what would we even call that? There's an absolute massacre in the top lane that's happening. Isurus managed to push down the T3 in the bottom lane, and there was a huge creep wave just slowly chewing through these Raxes. So Boreal has their own set of Raxes exposed. So if Isurus wants to try and go for the same sort of play, push the creep wave towards the Raxes, and then at that point force the fight into Boreal to try and delay it as long as possible, they could eventually get free Raxes this way.
Which is going to throw an ultimate onto the creep wave. Yeah, just clear that up. It's an Axe. Yeah. Low enough cooldown at level 16. Why not? He's not going to use it in a team fight here. But the big difference between the damage that Boreal got and the damage that Isurus got is Isurus's was distributed between the ranged and melee because it was the creeps, and Boreal tried to commit for the melee barracks. All the damage that Boreal did is going to be regenerated very shortly. Right now, Night Stalker going to need some help with dewarding, but Winter Wyvern will be all too happy to oblige.
So at this point now, Boreal, they're trying to push up onto the high ground, but it looks like the advantage is a little bit too difficult for them to deal with. They try and go for a smoke and go for a pick up onto Isurus, or would they just go for another Roche attempt and get the Aegis plus the cheese? It is available.
It's so hard for both of these teams to make the call to go into Roche. Isurus is Roche, although they do have a team that's really good at fighting inside close quarters, don't have a very good team at killing off the Roshan himself. Slark's physical damage is very limited. He's gone for the Shadow Blade Skadi, a little bit of damage from the Midas and BKB, but as a whole hasn't committed for a major DPS item like a Butterfly Basher, Assault Cuirass, anything that would help them go for that Roche. And the Lina also isn't transitioning into right-click DPS very heavily. They don't take it nearly as fast as Boreal, and it's too dangerous to fight against like a Gyrocopter Shadow Fiend. Even the Lich ultimate inside the pit could be absolutely detrimental. Boreal are going to make their rotation towards Roshan. It's daytime, but only for a couple seconds. Night is going to fall soon, and this could be a huge engagement.
Yeah, so where's the vision coming from for Isurus? Now, they do have Nidara coming in, so everyone for Boreal is going to try and go for a disengage here, but who's going to be the first one to jump in? Witch's Curse onto Bakemono. They will be hitting onto the Gyro, but it's not really going to impact them. Then there comes the Lich Ult bouncing between these heroes, and unfortunately Nidara has to back out. He's losing way too much HP. Kokoni, though, actually being taken down by the Lina as well as the Slark, but Slark is being caught out here. He is going to be able to hide under the cover of invisibility, but the Ice Shards do manage to connect. Jeppin's going to be there with the Snowball, wants to jump onto Pepita, Yules into the air. Lina will live for a little bit longer, but there's too many Boreal heroes. Isurus has lost one, they've lost two. They could essentially lose another one here, and we have Slark having to leap onto the high ground and Lich taking out the Darkseer, and they don't see him. They honestly don't need to kill Nidara here. They could just take the Roche, or they could just go straight down mid lane. This Rax is exposed, and it's on low HP as well, and it looks like that's the plan.
By some miracle, the Shadow Fiend survives there. He even walks through the wall on his way out, and the illusion wasn't able to hit him because it was targeting the other hero because of the Glimmer Cape that was applied. So Shadow Fiend is able to walk back towards base, now has Boots of Travel, and will be joining the fray shortly. Barracks in mid going to fall in its entirety. The range barracks is going to be fallen. Or be taken down. They'll buy back on their Darkseer. They chase forward. The pounce to the Bakemono, but a TP attempt by the Gyrocopter. He can't cancel it with anything but the vacuum, but they have it. And they are going to be able to stop this Gyrocopter from getting out to safety. The Lich Ultimate still bouncing back and forth between Alkadonchen and the Darkseer, but with the Glimmer Cape, we'll be able to slow that down even more. Bakemono has 14 stats stolen from. That's a stupid amount of stats now in Slark's pocket that he could use to maybe turn things around. If they caught vision, he's going to open up into Kokoni. The Shadow Fiend can't really take this exchange, has the BKB popped, and now Alkadonchen trying to run away. Slow it down to a crawl. The Ice Shard's going to be a little bit off the mark. They snowball forward, bring the Shadow Fiend in there too. Short range raise. Requiem is going to be unwound on top of a Cold Embrace Slark, but with the Winter's Curse, they're going to stop Kokoni from being able to use that spell. He's eventually going to let it through. It kills the Slark on impact. Buyback from the Slark, trying to get back into this exchange. The Winter Wyvern running away, the Creep Wave almost killing her, but with the Cold Embrace will survive. Night Stalker has, I believe, the gem. There's also a gem on this Rubik that they might be able to claim. With the pounce connecting, it looks like they are going to be able to kill off Pizza Dad. Alkadonchen, the True Sight is no longer there. Pizza Dad's Glimmer Cape is going to expire, and they'll kill him off and pick up the gem for themselves. Down towards the south to catch up BQ. The Lich also going to be a casualty of war as Isurus make a defense and defend their second set of barracks. Still, the Shadow Fiend survives. The Shadow Fiend is very fat, and across the board, the net gold exchange for both of these teams is negative on both accounts. If Isurus can get this Roshan, transition that into high ground pressure or into another set of barracks, that would be one thing. But let's see if they're able to accomplish just that. They're going to go to Roche.
Yeah, this should be an easy Roche. There's 3 heroes dead for Boreal, and honestly, with what they currently have, I don't think they would have been able to contest the Roche anyway, without possibly having severe losses. So, they're just going to wait for the supports to come back up. They will give Isurus this Roche. Does this change the dynamic of the game for the Slark, though? Does this mean he can just go completely crazy, or does he still have to play carefully? The cheese! The cheese! Take the cheese,
they'll
please!
get it. It's Pepita.
Oh. Okay, Pepita likes cheese. Okay.
As he should. I'm sure it's very delicious, and Lina is going to benefit from that quite nicely. She's probably the second most important target inside these fights. To answer your question a little bit earlier about the Slark, I think this does allow him to just go hog wild inside these fights. But Alkadonchen, I feel like he needs another item in order to really have a full impact inside these engagements. The Requiem damage reduction is making it very hard for him to get anything through inside these fights. Even if he does get a lot of Essence Shift stacks stolen, his physical DPS just isn't that much. Winter Wyvern going to die to the Shadow Fiend Tusk in the bottom lane. Winter Wyvern cut it way far out alone.
So for the extra item that you're suggesting, sorry, you didn't suggest, you mentioned, what would he be going for? Does he just go for a basher
or
at this
damage?
Point?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Although if it's a basher, it doesn't give you that much damage. You already have the slow from the IS Guard. You maybe go for something else. Bakemono going to go for an easy TP out. But aside from a basher, what else could he possibly go for? Just straight up butterfly?
I'd love the butterfly. Shadow Fiend, although he would be able to transition into a Monkey King bar, won't be able to do that now, but even more interesting is the item pickup on Gyrocopter. It's a Scythe of Vice. This is something you see in high-level games, often where your carries get the Scythe, but usually not on Gyro. They rely almost exclusively on the Shadow Fiend to pull the damage out through these fights. This is an incredibly utility-heavy build. If this was on something like an Ursa, I probably wouldn't even bat an eye because he comes built in with so much physical damage, but Gyrocopter isn't that hero, necessarily. I think Bakemono is reserved to the fact that he's probably not going to be able to transition. This might be able to turn around in a couple of fights, but I feel like this is a risky pickup. It's really hard to say that about Scythe. It's such a great item in general, but it applies most of the pressure on the Shadow Fiend. to be able to find this fight. If they get a good pick off with the smoke first with it, maybe that'll change my mind about it. Boreal, this is a pretty all-in move.
Yeah, so we'll see if this is going to be successful with the added bonus of this Scythe of Ice. As you said, it's risky. If you don't have the damage to follow up, what's the point of the Scythe of Ice, right? If you can't kill the target anyway, but Snowball into the mid lane, they're going to try and jump onto Nadera. He will be healed up by the Winter Wyvern. There is going to be the cooldown by Bakamono. Now Hex onto Pekka. There's going to be no Winter Wyvern Curse, unfortunately. Does he have buyback, though? He does die in the meantime, so that's 60 seconds of no Winter's Curse, and it looks like Kikoni has to TP out here, so this Slark's going to force him back. Vacuum into a wall! 2 heroes into that wall, and we still have our Slark here. Heroes just TPing out. They really don't care. And all of a sudden, we have 3 retreating, and we have our Slark here. Well, he's going to have to just leave everybody. So I guess Basher is going to have to be this item pickup for Slark. Everyone's just TPing out. Like, he can't do anything. This is disgusting. Oh, my goodness.
4 TPs out by Boreal.
By Basher. Yeah, definitely agree with the Basher now. I can understand why. It just means it's not going to be as much damage as a butterfly, though. That's the only thing.
Once it's upgraded to Abyssal, it'll be really darn good. Still, the Abyssal is going to be dodged by that Lincoln Sphere coming up from the Gyrocopter, and if he blocks that Abyssal, the Slark is going to be feeling really sad, but I think that's probably what he has to do. Isurus, although they don't find kills, at least they stop Boreal from aggressing on their barracks, and they still hold. The top lane ranged, although it's about at half, mirrors the ranged barracks down towards bottom, and at this point in the game, ranged barracks mean very little. It's all about melee and eventual mega creeps. But another big item pickup, we have a refresher for this Dark, so we've seen how many good vacuum wall combinations he's been getting off. Maybe a double vacuum wall could be backbreaking for Boreal if they catch them out. A Shadow Fiend illusion in particular is terrifying. He's going to be going towards a butterfly next, although this is going to bolster his base damage. Also means that Darkseer wall illusion is going to be doing so much more.
Yeah, so we'll see how this push comes out for Boreal. Isurus, it's their job to defend their base. They're hanging in for so long. If they manage to win this game over the back of just pure defense, I wouldn't really call it too much of a miracle, but I would say it's just off the back of some really good play. They do find Pekka, and they're going to have to pop the Glimmer Cape onto this Winter Wyvern to make sure he gets out okay, plus the Surge. They could possibly commit onto the Shadow Fiend if they really want to, but he's going to get out. He's pretty quick. They have vision of these other heroes, though. Peter Dad as well as these other, the Lich, sorry, they do manage to get him. Wolf thrown out by our Rubik, and he's going to go down quite quickly, and all of a sudden we have Nadera who wants to go right after this Lich. 100% vision, but I think they're going to back up at this point. Look at the illusions doing a lot of work against the Slark, and the gem's still on the deck. No one's picked this up as of yet. So this is going to be a very nice bonus here, going in the wave. Isurus to have that gem. Unless no one likes gems, they're kind of looking at it. Here we go.
They'll pick it up eventually for the Darkseer, and we'll add that to their gem collection. They don't have any in base right now, but they do have one on the Courier, and they do have one on the Night Stalker. 3 in this game, 2 of which I believe were bought by Boreal, and right now with that Vision Supremacy, Isurus are able to feel much more comfortable around the map. Boreal can't keep wards up. Right now, what they see is what their creeps can see and what's inside their base. The map as a whole is very dark. And for the dire side, although it's not much better, you have this Night Stalker that's a light bulb at nighttime. He has a huge amount of vision around him that's going to make Isurus feel a lot more comfortable to take these engagements, and I think this really just comes down to who gets the jump on who. Right now we also get the Assault Cuirass to Tusk as if he needed to be any tankier. This helps a lot with the high ground siege, however. Now Boreal are going to look to at least pressure these lanes, although I think going for the high ground siege right now is a bit reckless, especially into the Refresher Darkseer.
But do they know about the Refresher Darkseer, though? They might not have seen it yet. That's the thing. If they've seen it, then a bit of a different story. Then they'd obviously play a little bit more carefully. But instead, they want to try and go into the mid lane. They were probably hoping to catch up a Peter, who may have been a little bit too greedy to hang around, but he backs up. It's serious. They're playing so carefully this game, much carefully than the previous game. Whereas Boreal, they're trying to seize whatever opportunities that they can find, but sometimes it just gets foiled outright.
Instead of the Basher for the Slug, he's gone for a Monkey King Bar, which at least will cancel TPs for targets that aren't BKB'd, so I suppose that's something, but it also helps dealing with this Butterfly from the Shadow Fiend, which up until this point was an incredibly good item at delaying the damage from Isurus. They just didn't have enough, but this game has slowed down to almost a crawl. It's really hard to call who has the late game advantage, and the net worth lead for either side at this point means nothing. It's negligible at best. And really, the only thing that matters is the fact that Boreal have a full lane of barracks down in the mid lane and exposed barracks up towards top. Group up from the Dire team, smoked up. And now Isurus are going to make their move. Slark is going to Shadow Blade. He's trailing a little bit behind them, but maybe they can kill off this Shadow Fiend. The Slark is going to walk over a ward. Will de-ward that, so they probably know that Night Stalker is close by and might be able to extrapolate that the rest of the team is there, especially with the Radiant Vision on the high ground. They know about this. Lena's going to take that out, and with it, the Rubik and Shadow Fiend will survive, although next time around they are going to be dark on the map.
Yeah, they still have 3 heroes pushing up in the top lane though, so Boreal, they kind of spread thin a little bit. If they get caught out, this could be a bit of a disaster. Kokoni's by himself. Night Stalker sees him, but the rest of his team's in the mid lane. They're not really there to reinforce him, so he's going to have to back out. And here we go. Defense number 3, defense number 4, something along the lines. Multiple defenses. Can they hang it in again? We'll have to keep an eye on the Darkseid with this refresher orb.
Yeah, he's the big hero to watch in this up-and-coming fight if he can make the initiation happen, but for now, it's just both teams declare the creep wave, and that's it. It's so difficult to make the jump at this late game stage in the game when both of these teams are so very close, and it might have to be until the next Roshan that we see before a major fight breaks out, either in the Roche pit or in the high ground defense that will follow if they get an Aegis for somebody. But how much does Aegis actually mean? I think for Isurus it means a lot more. The Gyrocopter and Shadow Fiend are so tanky for their first lives, and for their second lives aren't going to be doing a super huge amount of damage, although that might change. Shadow Fiend is pulling up a lot of gold. What do you build on Kokoni here? Maybe just a straight up Demon Edge item for him, although it looks like he's considering it. Will settle on the Demon Edge and TP down towards bottom to keep these lanes pushed out.
Yeah, feels like a Daedalus, possibly just to get those crits and to really throw some damage onto the side of Isurus. So Boreal, they're taking this very slowly, and they're waiting for the opportunity to come to them, whereas it's exactly the same for Isurus. So this might be a very slow push incoming for us, but it's very, very crucial that these teams get the initiation that they want, because it could honestly go either way. It's purely based on initiation plus control. Who has the most control?
And right now that control is probably in the side of Isurus, if I'm honest, with this refresher in the Darkseer. If he blows the ref and doesn't find a good jump, that's where Boreal could make something happen. But right now, the most damage that they're getting through is from these catapults, and those are going to be taken out very swiftly by the Lina. In the meantime, Kokoni's going into the Roshan pit. He has the full Daedalus available and will probably be flying that out to himself very soon. Maybe replace the S and Y with the Aegis for the first life and keep it on the courier for the second. We'll wait and see how they distribute these items for the team, as the rest of his allies are going to meet up with him to offer that Sakuras minus armor. Even without Shadow Fiend would have been able to solo it, but that makes it a little bit faster. Shadow Fiend takes the Aegis. He drops his Demon Edge for it. This first life is going to be very tanky for Kokoni and will allow him to sit on the high ground, but his damage output will be severely mitigated without that full Daedalus. But then again, Isurus don't know about it, so maybe for the second life, the Daedalus catches him off guard if the courier micro is there and it doesn't die. But now it's time for Boreal to go high ground. There's nothing else to wait for.
Yeah, so time is running out for Boreal. They're still going up against a Slug, and honestly, a full 6-slotted Slug is an absolute nightmare to deal with, and I'm pretty sure Boreal understands this. That's why they're constantly trying to put pressure on these lanes, hoping that they can actually get a jump onto someone, but it's so hard. You can't jump onto anything. You always have to think twice about any decisions that you want to make. So Boreal just taking it nice and slow. Slug gonna spot out Kokoni, but he's by himself, and he probably knows that there might be a reinforcement behind. Gonna have to wait for the Night Stalker to come in with the vision, and they should be able to spot some illusions. Oh, actually, they'll see the Lich illusion, and they might... Yeah, they should have assumed at this point it was fake, but they still see the Shadow Fiend, and Ice Shard's not going to block their path, but Isurus not going to commit here, just going to slowly creep their way out of the base and then head back inside again.
Speaking of this Lich, he is holding on to the Daedalus for the Shadow Fiend. Right now, he's the walking courier for their side as they go for this push up towards top. It's the right place to go for this move since the barracks are already exposed. But, yeah, this game is really on a razor's edge. If things go differently, could completely explode. The Daedalus will be moved back onto Kikoni, and the S and Y will be held by BQ. Boots travel down towards bottom lane. The Shadow Fiend's there. In the meantime, the Gyrocopter's hunting for the Slark. Alkadonshin has his ultimate, gonna steal some stats away from Kikoni. He's gonna purge off that missile, and up Pepita comes in. They have the blink in. Vacuum catches nothing because of the BKBs. Now Alkadonshin's dropping low. Do they quite have the damage? Glimmer Cape, Alkadonshin survives, and he'll be able to run out towards the sidelines. Refresher, they have the vacuum. This time around it connects. The BKBs have since worn off, but they don't have enough mana for the secondary wall. Pepita's getting crit down by the Shadow Fiend. Kikoni is going strong, and will be able to take down a little bit of their health, but not quite enough. That cheese on the Lina is going to save her life, and Kikoni is going to be bashed up by the Slark. This second life is not going to be long, as the rest of his team is going for high ground. They got the melee and ranged barracks top. Boreal lose their 2 carries, but what they get in return for it is more than worth it.
That was such a huge win there for Boreal. So they essentially used the Gyro and the Shadow Fiend as a diversion for the rest of the team to take the Raxes. Beautiful play, and Isurus took the bait entirely. They lost their Raxes, and they honestly, they probably are thinking that these carries don't have buyback, but they do. So this is going to definitely end up
make this play.
They have to, because they know that their time's running out and they can't just wait and sit back anymore. They're at such a disadvantage already. So Scythe of Ice going to be coming in for Pepita. Is this going to be enough, though? Can the high ground push succeed for Isurus, or is this going to be their end? We'll have to see in this episode of High Ground Push.
High ground push, gonna start with the buyback from the Shadow Fiend and the Lich ultimate towards the Dara. The Cold Embrace will save Dara a little while longer. He has the BKB up, so won't take any damage. Requiem will be unwound, but Winter's Curse on a Kikoni. They'll start focusing down the Shadow Fiend, but he's still standing strong. Alkadonshin will die. Slark down for 2 minutes here, but he does have buyback available. So now it's time for episode 2. Boreal strikes back after the all-in effort for Isurus to try and end this game now. Should they kill off the Shadow Fiend? Should they kill off this Gyrocopter? That's the only way that Isurus can win this game. But it's going to be a very hard sell. The refresher on the Darkseer is still on cooldown for 1.5 minutes, and it looks like Boreal are ready to cut him off. The Darkseer is deep on enemy lines. He's going to look for the creep wave cut. Will drop a vacuum, trying to do as much damage as possible, and then jump down towards the south. His creep cutting tactics were unsuccessful. Won't be able to mop up that wave, and with it, this is probably going to be all of the mega creeps going in the favor of Boreal. They're going to be able to mop up the barracks in their entirety. Buyback from the Slark. They're going to get a Hex onto Pepita. And now the lift up follow-up. The Lina is crucial for this fight. Can they bring her down? Walrus Punch. She'll yields herself up in the air. Delays a little bit of this damage. Kikoni's around the corner. His BKB's worn off. The Light Strike Array's there. The Hex on the Shadow Fiend. Kikoni, will you go down? The Monkey King bar on the Slark, but he kills 2 with the Death Requiem. And with that very well could be game. The Lina and Slark are completely out of this, but the Gyrocopter doesn't have that much damage. In the meantime, Jeppins does with the Assault Crest. Will be able to punch down another. Isurus are down their Darkseer, Lina and Slark for 100 seconds, and that's going to be good game called out by them as Gyrocopter finishes his refresher, and as they finish up a couple more kills to take it home. 2-1, and Boreal come away with the victory.
So after all that effort to push up high ground, it finally pays off for them, whereas Isurus, they had a hard defense, but they did the best that they could. But honestly, I think it was just based on the fact that Boreal had the better control. They had the Tusk there for the initiation. They had the Lich there in the back lines constantly to keep his team safe. You always had that Rubik as well. And even though Isurus had the Curse, the Darkseer wall, the Lina, the Slut, everything they had, I feel like they just didn't have enough damage output to kill them off. There was just too many tanky heroes on Boreal that they couldn't deal with.
Yeah, the HP pools on Boreal's side were ridiculous, and unfortunately, when you're at that late game scenario, you need everything to go perfectly. And that last Winter's Curse and the last combo from the Darkseer were anything but. So Boreal will take a 2-1 victory over Isurus, bumping them down into the lower bracket. I don't really understand how the bracket has functioned and what that actually means, but you can check that out on JoinDota's website, and we'll have most of the games here on HeflaTV, or at least we'll try to keep up to date as much as possible. Thanks for watching here. That's going to be the last series for the day. I've been GrandisV. She's been Danily. You can find me on Twitter at GrandisV and her at DanilyCast. If you enjoyed the casting and want to find updates on when we're going live on whatever projects we're working on, the VODs will be uploaded to youtube.com/HeflaMoke. Join Dota League, obviously. Big shout out to them for sponsoring all of these games and for allowing us to watch some fun Dota. Enjoyed these games quite a lot, and we'll hope to see more from both of these teams in the future. It's going to be GrandisV and Danily signing out. See you later, guys.
GG.